The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay, should be good to go, Craig.
All right. Well, welcome everyone. This is my second attempt at this. I know that the Lunch and Learns have been going on and they've been well received. Always an interesting experience doing the webinars for our monthly events. Miss getting together with everybody, but this is the best we can do. And I appreciate the tech team working hard to make this as seamless as possible. And we're getting used to it, just learning how to do this better and better as we go along. So I'm glad you're here. I'm hoping this is a good use of your time tonight. I do want to kind of recognize that this is our first attempt at a networking event. Last month, if you were here, we had it was more of like a dinner lecture kind of presentation. And this time we're going to try to be a little more interactive, which is going to be different, right? Since we're in this mode. So let's go ahead and go through some of our regular slides to bring you guys up to speed on what's happening with PMI WIC, and we will go from there. So now I have to figure out where my slides are. And so here we go. So Rod, you want to speak to our membership?
Sure. I'd like to first of all welcome the new members. We had 4 this month. Our membership count is at 601, and we've continued to have good retention. So a few people coming in, a few people leaving, but feel really good about that. And it's really great to have these new members.
Yeah, excellent.
And then we have our member anniversaries. We have these 1-year anniversaries, and then the 5-year anniversary. No 10 years this month, so that's it for membership. Thank you.
All right, well, congratulations, all you guys. Appreciate you being here, and the more of you that stick around, the better it is. So that's great. Thanks, Rod. Karen, I think this is your slide.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, so we have a Facebook group, a new Facebook group. I think you guys, who were here last month saw this slide as well. So if you want to join us out there, we're in the process of ramping it up. And so we'll spend the summer ramping it up with content. And, hopefully you guys will join and interact with us on that Facebook group. So if you are a Facebook member, go ahead and search for, I think it's PMI WIC, and request to join our Facebook group.
All right. Great way to stay involved. Sometimes, just trying to keep up with emails is a little difficult. So this is another great opportunity to engage with the chapter, and hopefully, that whatever works for people is what we're trying to do, and just make the chapter more accessible to everyone. So thanks, Karen. Daryl, we talked a little bit about the communications and tech team.
Right. Yes. So we have actually grown. So it used to just be VP of Communications, and then we opened it up to create a communications and technology team. Did that last year. George is the Director of Technology. That's a new position for our chapter. And so George and I have been working together to try to come up with not just only a strategy for a team, but one that dovetails and aligns with the chapter as well as PMI. And so we've been working closely together with the board to try to determine what our priorities are. And of course, our priorities got a little sidetracked this spring, and we went directly to looking at virtual tools for meetings. Funny how that works, right? So yes, we've stood up our GoToMeetings and our GoToWebinar, and that seems to be working really well. But we have some other tools that we need some help with. So we've got our website that we maintain. We do send out regular mailers through MailChimp. We also use Yapsity. At some point, we'll get back to using that. Yapsity is the tool we use for event management and ticket sales when we have physical meetings, right, versus the virtual ones through GoToWebinar and GoToMeetings. So we have tools that we could use some help with. We've got a small team. We're pretty taxed because all of us have been helping now with all of the online meetings that we do for Lunch and Learn as well as the evening events. So we're looking for some assistance. So I believe my email is on it. Yes, it is vp_communications@pmiwic.org. Please send me an email if you're interested, and then I will work with the volunteer director, Mike, to make sure that we've got you in the right spot and see if you would like to join our team, either on the communication side or technology. And George, I'm sorry, I spoke longer than I expected to. Did you want to jump in?
That's okay. I think you covered everything, and just look forward to getting some additional folks on the committee and working with you to make this the best chapter we can. Thanks.
Right on, right on. Thanks, Craig.
Great. And yeah, and you know, the more help, you know, everybody knows this, the more help any of these VPs have to do this work, the better. So anytime you guys are interested in participating in any of these activities, please let us know, because we can use you. All right, my slide. We're dark. July and August is typically months where we don't have any PMI chapter events. The summer is just too hard to get people together. Usually, although we may have thought about this and did some virtual things, but traditionally we're dark, and we're going to be that way this summer as well. The work doesn't stop though, so there's the board will be engaged doing a lot of planning and just preparing for kind of next year, next season, whatever we want to call it. So if you guys do have you know, if you want to get involved with anything, we're here. Let us know. I know that we're always looking for speakers and people to speak at the Lunch and Learns and our evening events. So if you do have some ideas about that, again, please let us know, and we will work that in as we can. It's weird that you guys can't ask questions. You actually can ask questions. Maybe I'll do this. I'll do this right now. So you all over on the, I think, the right side of your screen, if you haven't changed your settings, you all should have a questions area. So you can ask questions. The questions will come to me and to the other co-organizers, and we'll do our best to answer any of those if there's technical questions or, you know, any questions that come up during the presentation. I am going to ask you to use that and kind of participate in responding to some of the questions and kind of work that Chip is going to ask you to do. So that's going to be our kind of our chat mechanism for you to respond to us. This is one of those tool things we're working around. So you can use your question area to communicate with the presenters or the organizers. So please do that, and talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But we're here. So tonight we are finishing our Engage theme. If you guys have been coming to these events, we had, you know, tonight is our last of the Engage theme with Engage Your Network, and we're talking about networking with a purpose. And Chip is going to be presenting. You know, I can't read my slide now. I have all these things over it, but you guys can. So this is what Chip's going to be presenting. All right, first hiccup. Sorry. I think, and a lot of you know Chip. Either you have worked with him in the past through Hecht, or you know, you will recognize him from our career panels. He's participated in a couple of those over the past few years. And Chip is Chip's a great guy. Works at Hecht. I'll let you read a little bit about his bio here. And as I said, tonight we're really trying to make this as interactive as possible with the limitations of being virtual. So I do want you to be able to ask your questions, use that question area as a means to for input, right? Either a question or an answer, which is kind of ironic. So that's how we're going to be participating. It will really be helpful if you guys are in front of your PCs, as I imagine you are. If you don't have to do this, because you can do this using the chat and the questions, but it might be helpful if you have some kind of editor, like if you have Word pulled up, or OneNote, or Notepad, or something where you can jot down some answers. That we're trying to make this a little bit interactive, to give you some things to do over the next hour, and the result of that, ideally, can be placed into the questions window, and then we will know what you guys have been doing. So we'll see how that works, but to make that work, you guys have got to participate. So hopefully you will do that, and I've vamped enough to let you open up one of those applications. So because you guys don't have an immediate way to respond or interact with Chip tonight in the presentation, I'm your surrogate. So I'm going to be playing the part of the audience as much as I can when it's too cumbersome to use the question and chat features. So if there's something that you do want to ask about the content, go ahead, use it, put it in the chat window. I will do my best to keep up and get your questions answered. All right, let's see, Cheryl, Chip, anybody, did I forget anything before we jump in here?
Nope, I think we're good. You're going to mention at the end about our handouts and those kinds of things, so we'll cover that then.
Yes.
Otherwise,
Yeah.
I think we're good.
All right, so you guys want to stay to find out about how to get the PDU.
All right, I'm going to cam out here, so there we go.
Okay, and I'm going to turn this over to Chip. So Chip, welcome. And
all right, so I'm looking for control. Let's get this going. All right, so Craig, can you see the presentation?
I can.
Okay, perfect. Hey, everybody, hi. So glad that you're here today. Really hopeful that you'll take away a few tips and tricks that might be able to help you in the future professionally. I wanted to really extend a shout out to this amazing gang that does all this extra work for you, specifically on this particular project and presentation for Craig and for Cheryl and for George. You don't see the back office work that they do, the time that they spend in and amongst all of their other duties. And so just a big appreciation to the PMI leadership, and a thank you for allowing me into your world today. And I hope there will be a few things that you take away. Reiterating what Craig said, if you can, while we're beginning to chat right now, is to have something that you can take some notes on. There's going to be some mini questions and some mini assignments for you to create some answers for. I hope that you will take advantage of that question box and send them to Craig, and then Craig will help be the audience of one. And I know that he's going to be a great facilitator on his side too. So thank you for your patience as we work through the technology. Today, we're going to be talking about purposeful networking. And we have an agenda that I'd like to run through. But before we get started, when we say networking, I think many things might come to mind. One-on-one chat with somebody over the phone, over Zoom, face-to-face, could be in a conference, or certainly the PMI meetings. Everyone has a thought about what that means. And as Craig and I were working on this project together and batting around some ideas, one thing that really came to the forefront is, are people actually being very purposeful in their networking? So you're going to hear that word a lot today, purposeful. So let me jump into our agenda. Here are the three big buckets that we'll be talking about today. So what is purposeful network? This is actually something that's not really out there. It's something that we created to be more purposeful when we are out there networking, these opportunities that could enhance our careers through gaining information or through perhaps career advancement. It's incredibly important to be thoughtful about how we can have a purposeful introduction. So many of our introductions, they really, let's face it, they kind of fall flat. And for the most part, many people they're introverted. They're maybe not comfortable sharing. And even the ones that are extroverted, they may not necessarily come in with a plan, with a way to have a very solid, thoughtful, purposeful introduction. We're also going to talk about enhancing the purposeful interaction that you could potentially have in networking situations. So those will be the three big items that we'll talk about today. I hope everyone gets something out of this agenda. Please participate. Give Craig some ammunition to fire back into the discussion today. Let's start off with something really simple. I pulled this down off Wiki. So what exactly is networking? So here's the definition. I'll say it out loud. It's the action or process of interacting with others to exchange information and develop professional or social contacts. And my gosh, this has already significantly changed just since middle of March, where many interactions have gone virtual, where much of business is being forced into the digital space, including networking, including contacts, including how we interact with others, and even hence today, the PMI team adjusting to this new format. I wish we had a meal together and could shake a hand, but that's not happening right now. Here we are in this virtual environment and making adjustments as we speak. All right. So what we really want to push on today is, again, the concept of being purposeful, that it requires some preparation, not just to show up, but to actually know why you are there, to think about it ahead of time, no matter what that interaction might be. It could even be as simple as what I call sometimes the Winco conversation. These days we have masks on, but we still have a chance maybe to interact with people we know at 6 foot distance. But there's always potentially an opportunity to share. And PMI certainly provides that opportunity now today. So let's take this a little bit further. So we wanted to throw out a poll, and I'll be quiet for a second too. I want Craig to add in some comments, but to this point, Craig, is there anything else to add before we launch our poll on networking?
No, I really don't think so, Chip. Other than, you know, when we talk about being purposeful, and you know, you threw the Winco thing in there. I don't know how purposeful we can be at Winco, but certainly when we go to, you know, a meeting, right, or an event, you know, whether it's a networking event or a dinner event or a conference somewhere. I don't know. I know that I don't always go purposefully saying, okay, this is what I want to get out of it. You know, my head is in the game. I'm going there for a reason. You know, a lot of times it's just something on my calendar, right? You got to go, so I'm going to show up without really taking the time to say, okay, how am I going to make this valuable? So I think that's what you're after here.
Very good. So I guess we'll ask George or Cheryl to launch our first poll.
Okay, launching the poll. You should be able to see it now.
Looks good. And Craig, I know you're monitoring the Q&A. We did have a comment by one of our attendees. Chip had asked, you know, what was the purpose for networking? and she had responded to get her name known by people outside her immediate team. So yeah, definitely.
And that was Barbara Bailey,
Right.
to really get her name outside of the immediate team. Thanks, Barbara. Sorry if I outed you, but you know, that's a great reason, right? So it's good that, you know, you're thinking about that. Even something as I would say as simple as that. It doesn't have to be a grandiose, you know, why am I here, you know, but just something like that to say, well, this is why I'm here, and I know why I'm here, and I'm going to act upon it. So great, thanks.
Okay, it's looking like we're getting close to 90% voting. So we'll keep it open for just another few seconds. And as things slow down, we'll close that and let you see the results. Okay, looks like it has slowed down. Closing the poll in 2, 1, 0. Okay, and here are the results.
Giving everybody a chance to take this in. Thanks, George.
Okay. You ready to go on?
That's perfect. Thank you.
Okay, very good.
Thanks, George. A lot of different reasons, certainly for networking, and appreciate the comment about networking beyond immediate teams. I think that's brilliant, getting the message out. And thanks everybody for participating. Lots of different reasons to do it, lots of different ways to do it, and we're going to continue to explore that more. So we'll take it to the next slide. So we really think it's important to prepare ahead of time. Craig was alluding to being ready for these opportunities when they present themselves, that it requires preparation, that you should be thoughtful, give it some consideration. And that's what we're going to delve into a little bit further now. So let's move on to the next slide. So these are some of the things that were mentioned about being purposeful. Why am I going to do this? Why am I spending some of my precious time away from home or my free time? That I may want to meet someone new. Maybe I want to go and specifically learn about another company, learn something new about project management, or possibly even find or look for or ascertain my next opportunity through meeting others. I think it's a good thing to consider why you're going. I've attended many meetings, and you'll see people that are fairly quiet, and I understand that. This is an encouragement to really consider why you might be attending, and then to prepare for that opportunity. Craig, did you have anything else to add on that?
Yeah, I kind of spoke out of slide. I spoke too soon, but yeah, I do think that this. I think, you know, as we were, you know, working through this presentation, you know, it did really occur to me that you know, unless you are in a particular situation, like, so if you're actually, you deal with this all the time. You're helping people find work, or, you know, find the next opportunity. Where, you know, hey, I'm going to this thing, I'm trying to sell myself, I'm trying to meet somebody, I'm trying to, you know, find a job. And you know, a lot of us have been in that situation, so we know that is a good purpose. But you know, when you do have a job, when you are employed, I do think that a lot of times we don't really think about why we're going and what we could be accomplishing at some of these places. So I think being purposeful is about that.
So maybe the encouragement is for your very next PMI meeting is to really give that some consideration, some pre-thought. Why are you attending? Some of you have already put your answers into the poll, and I hope that truly that you will give that some additional consideration so that you are purposeful in your next networking opportunity. Craig called out talking about Winco. It's one of my favorites. We'll get into that a little bit more. We are isolating more about being purposeful in these specific interactive networking opportunities that PMI provides. But networking can happen any day, everywhere, by accident or on purpose. So we will, of course, stay in that purposeful space. So it's a good one by Craig. All right, we're going to move on. All right, so the second piece of our chat today is about your introduction. Most of the time, folks do not have a plan. They have not considered how could I perhaps have a pre-prepared, purposeful introduction ready to go, and especially in the more formal settings where it's almost really expected that you should know exactly how to represent yourself. How can you articulate who you are and what you do, and so that the listener can clearly understand who you are and what you do. And it is an opportunity every time. So let's get into a purposeful introduction and what that might look like. Everyone has it. Let's see if we might take yours just a step further. All right, so George, would you mind launching our second poll, please?
Okay. All right, the responses are coming in.
Thanks, George.
And we're up over 60% so far. We'll give it a few more minutes to see if we can get close to the 90% we got the first time.
And we promise we won't call out any names. This is anonymous, right, George?
This is anonymous. Yep. All right. We're sitting at 96% response, and it looks like it is slowing down. Okay, we'll close the poll in 3, 2, 1. All right. And here are the results.
All right, so it looks like, I think that this is great that a good 1 in 4 folks put themselves in the yes, I'm prepared to introduce myself, my skills, and my company. Fabulous. Looks like for 3/4 of the rest of the participants today might be able to use some additional help here. So Craig, I got to ask you straight up, what'd you push, or did you have an opportunity to participate?
You know, as a co-organizer, I'm not allowed to participate in the poll. So, but I think I'd be in that middle category. I can kind of introduce myself. What I think occurred to me when I was doing this is, and maybe goes back to the Winco thing. It kind of depends on where I'm at, right? Am I at this, a formal kind of place where maybe, say I'm looking for a job, I'm at a job fair. I've probably worked on this a little bit, right? What's my introduction? But am I prepared to give one, at a networking event? I don't know. I would definitely be in that sort of column.
Okay. Thank you, Craig. All right, so for the folks that answered yes, I'm prepared, I'm hopeful that today and some of the things that we'll be talking about, that we might even be able to take it a little bit further. And for the other 3/4 of you, hopefully we can really enhance this concept of being purposeful in your introduction, that we can help you with your prepared introduction. So as we're beginning to move forward, and George, you're welcome to drop the poll now, thank you very much, is we're going to become interactive, and it'll be helpful per Craig's comment earlier, is to have a place to be able to take a few notes. These will be for you, and hopefully many of you will be open to sharing some of them. So we'll be using that question feature again, but it'll be helpful on the side to be able to take some notes. So there will be some quiet time that we're going to give you to think about it, and that's going to occur throughout the rest of the presentation. All right, so let's talk some more about a purposeful introduction. All right, clearly, we really like to be prepared ahead of time. To be purposeful requires preparation, to clearly share who you are. And I'm really hopeful that by the end of today, this will give you some things to really think about so it can be ready the next time you have that opportunity. Especially, I would say, for the ones that maybe are a little more quiet, a little bit more introverted. This might give you more comfort in sharing who you are. Funny side story, it took me about 20 years to be able to explain to my mother what I did. So I know it's a challenge to be able to explain who we are and what we do on a day-to-day basis. Not just, I'm a project manager. There is so much more to it, right? Okay, let's take another step. So here are some things to consider when you're preparing information around your introduction. These are some fairly simple things that you can begin to consider. What exactly am I? What am I capable of doing? And also, what makes me special? I'll back up to what Craig mentioned earlier. Much of this is situational, and it's not necessarily always formal. However, we want to be able to have our best capability to share this introduction when the opportunity presents itself. So let's be very thoughtful. Let's really dig into this a little bit further. And that's where the next slide's going to take us. Craig, I'll pause for comment if you had anything else to add at this point.
I've got nothing at this point. You're doing great.
All right, the next slide is going to give everyone a chance to see some possibilities about what some components of a purposeful introduction could include. Now, clearly, an introduction at a PMI networking opportunity or a networking meeting or the lunch and learns, you're not going to have enough time to say all these things. But let me give you just a minute to take this in. And they could be things that you could introduce or inject into your future introductions. Okay, so everybody's had a chance to take this in. Craig, anything else to add on this slide?
No, well, I keep saying no, and then I say something. I thought it was interesting when we were working on this slide specifically. Chip, you put some of this stuff together, and your job isn't to be a project manager. And it occurred to me by some of the things that you wrote, how PMI is actually changing. I think, as an example, I think number 4 had initially said something about agile. And I don't want anybody dropping off the line because I know some of you hate that word. But thinking about how PMI is changing and rebranding itself, where it's really the appropriate tool for the job, right? And we talked, I talked about achieving results rather than just getting in under budget and on time. So there is some thinking about this, and maybe that gets a little bit, maybe those would be some of the words you would use at a PMI event versus some other event, where people aren't in the know about what's happening with PMI. But I did have that thought when we were looking at this, is that this is part of this is being prepared, is knowing the right things to say, or sometimes the wrong things to say, or to stay away from stuff, or to interject things that can make you more interesting, the why do I care that you're talking to me, that if you understand that, wow, you know what, I can talk, and I'm giving this away a little bit, but I can talk about appropriate tools and methods rather than just what's hot at the moment. So a lot of just being prepared and looking at some of these statements that you have here can really just be flexible and adjust.
And I would actually, let's even go back to the question that we had earlier, other reasons to network, the comment about networking outside of my immediate team, and to be able to share your capabilities, that you become a known asset in another department that could be a potential subject matter expert or a helpful person in a matrixed organization to support other projects in other spaces. So that was a brilliant question that was provided earlier. We're going to put this back into control with you guys at this point. We're going to give you a little bit of quiet time and a chance to be thoughtful, a chance right now to work on your purposeful introduction. So 1 out of 4 of you said that it's already in place. Fabulous. Let's make it a little bit better. And for the ones that are not sure or haven't ever created one, let's begin to build it. And you don't have to follow this exact template. These are just suggestions. And for the most part, in many situations, this might be a bit of overkill, but let's have a toolbox full of potential that we can pull out and use based on the situation. So we'll keep an eye on the clock. Love to give you about 5 or 6 minutes to begin to chat this down. Craig, I don't know if you want to give them instructions on if they'd like to share their introduction with others, and so that we can hear what some of you have created and to be helpful to others. So yeah, Craig, please.
Yeah, so if you guys wouldn't mind sharing those things, what I will do, I can chat with you. It's a very one-sided conversation because I can throw stuff out in the chat so everybody can see it. You can't chat back. So the only way you can get me any kind of feedback is through the questions. But if you do want to after you take the time to fill in some of these questions, if you want to just cut and paste that into the question field, I will turn it around and chat it back out to everybody so everybody can see it. And so if you feel comfortable doing that, that's how we're going to manage this. And yeah, let's have kind of a discussion about it.
We'd love to have at least 2 or 3 or 4 examples to share. I hope that you guys will participate. We're going to go to quiet for about 5 minutes. So we've got about 6:43. We'll reconvene at about 6:48. And please, we'd love to share. So thanks to everybody. We'll give you a few minutes of quiet time.
tried to add some nice, interesting music in the background, but we couldn't.
Craig, this is Cheryl. I thought you were going to have some music playing in the background with your iPod and you were just going to turn up the speakers, right? No?
Oh, yeah.
No.
Oops.
Okay. All right. Just checking.
Next time. That probably would have worked. And if you guys want to break out of the mold here too and add your number 8 or 9 or 10, that's totally fine. This is just about anything that you can, think of and have ready, that's appropriate. So. God, I'm coming in. I'm going to start putting some out here. People are getting. Let's see if I can do this. All right, here's one. Chip, can you see this?
I can't. I think you'll have to be the narrator whenever you're ready. I mean, I think we got a couple more minutes for folks maybe to finish up. How many do you have right now?
I just have a couple. I'm going to see if I can get this to you. Look at this. Try that. No?
No, I'm afraid, yeah, on this side, I don't get it, Craig. So, and I would say also that we don't necessarily have to mention names. We can just share.
Yeah.
This is all about learning from each other and helping each other in this space.
Hey, Craig, and this is Cheryl. I just want to jump in and say, for folks who are unfamiliar with the tool, as you are loading up the chat with these responses, folks are going to see a 1 or a 2 or a 3 in red in their little chat icon. That will tell them that you've loaded it up with more information for them. They need to click on that in order to see the new messages. Does that make sense?
Thanks, Cheryl.
Okay.
Yeah, so Chip, a couple of one. One is, the answer to question 1. I'm a successful technical project manager with over 10 years of experience in hardware, software, IT, and operations.
Great.
So that's I'm a senior project manager. I have extensive experience with software implementation projects. I utilize a combination of agile and waterfall tools and concepts. I have managed projects with budgets from $50,000 to $4.5 million. I am successful because I'm transparent. I listen, I ask questions. I am extremely flexible in terms of the needs of the project team, the steering committee, and the executive leadership. I try to keep it light with lots of positive energy.
Great. Great.
So Chip, how do you, I remember doing this when I was working with you. How do you make it less stiff? I mean, when you write it down like this, I'm like, nobody talks this way, right? What's the presentation like when you want to get? I mean, I thought that was a really good one. Both of those were good. But the longer one, you're trying to get all the stuff in, and you got 10 seconds with this person. How do you make it not sound like it's just a spiel?
Right. Yeah, and you know what, Craig, that's a good question. And I'm sure that some of you, as you're developing this, you're saying, I don't talk like this. And I certainly don't want to, put this monologue in front of someone. And how are they supposed to react? So look at this as situational and potentially conversational. So I can even have this interaction maybe with Craig. And so Craig, if you were to think about if you and I were to meeting at the PMI, it could be more of you ask a question, you want to talk about your tools that you use. You could even open it up with, I work in the agile space. What tools, Craig, do you use? And then they can share.
So kind of make it more a question, kind of a conversation instead of just a boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, absolutely. These would be impossibly long, right? What we're trying to do is to give you as many tools, as many bullet points that you can pull out that are purposeful, that are pre-prepared, so that depending upon the conversation, you'll be able to share. And so yes, on every one of these bullet points, if I was to take Craig, if I can put you on the spot through this, I could say, so Craig, tell me about yourself. What would your first thing be what you would share, Craig?
Put me on the spot, Chip.
I know, right?
Well, probably
Introduction.
the basic, right? I'm an IT project manager at St. Luke's, and I work, mostly with clinical applications. So we're always upgrading and providing more applications for the clinics and the healthcare providers.
Absolutely. And then that gives the opportunity for the listener too to be able to share. It's not necessarily just a one-way street. Think of networking as not only the chance to share who you are, but it's the chance to also extract information from the person you're speaking with as well, to learn more about them, to see if there is common ground, to see if you might create some type of allegiance with that person, a networking opportunity or a relationship for the future. It could be shorter term and it could be longer term, but looking for some common ground. So Craig, I think, do we have another couple that came in?
Yeah, we do have a couple. We actually have three more. You guys are doing great. Thanks. I am a business process analyst for Micron. I hold degrees in both business and engineering and can translate the language of each group for the other. I work closely with project managers on large projects and run smaller projects in conjunction with my BPA role. I'm great at keeping a team on task and meet timelines of my project nearly 100% of the time. I work with international teams and I'm good at listening to what the team is saying to get to the root of the project or problem.
Very good. And some of the big pieces I pulled out there really quickly, not being, don't forget to mention your company. People sometimes just jump purely into title. So that's fabulous. Another element that was integrated in that I meet close to, and I know it's almost impossible, right, to deliver 100% of projects on time. And another thing that caught my ear, that caught my attention, I don't know if it caught yours, Craig, shared that they were in the international space, which has its own dynamics, its own issues in this 7x24 world and passing projects around the globe. So adding in international, that was fabulous. Excellent. Thank you. Appreciate you sharing. Let's do another one.
Okay, I am a process engineer for a technical company. I have extensive experience in managing multiple complex projects simultaneously while controlling budget and schedule constraints. I've managed budgets ranging from 10,000 to 3 million, and I am successful because I listen to the needs of my customers and subordinates, all while keeping the operational end goal in sight.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for sharing that one. Yeah, so you're catching there your budget sizes, some specific numbers, easy for the listener to hear, and clearly can understand that the person's in the process engineering space, budget size, and that the thing that they really try to do is to listen, to hear, to take in the information, and to respond. So that's great. Thank you very much for sharing. All right, we have another one.
I am a process oh, did I do that one? I did that one. Oh, Cheryl's been posting too. Oh. So a thought here, this person says, I would remove the I. PM is to be the leader of a team. Rephrase to make yourself an inclusive member. The successful experience I would provide includes.
Good. Yeah, it's tricky, right? We want to be inclusive. We want to share the success across the board of our teams. In the internal setting, certainly we is going to be coming before I. In scenarios where you're interacting and networking with folks that are perhaps outside of your organization, it'll be much more helpful for them to clearly understand what specifically do you do. So back to Craig's comments earlier, was that you have to know your audience, perhaps. Maybe you don't. That's where some of your questions can come in. And then you have your toolbox of things that you might want to share. And so the nice thing that I'm seeing with these summaries, and I don't know if we're going to get another one or not, and please don't be bashful, share it if you'd like. It can be shorter if you want to as well. But when you start talking about the specifics, let's take budgets, for instance. We're always trying to be on time and on budget. By introducing that subject, and let's say we're in an interactive environment, it gives you and the listener the opportunity perhaps to open that up. Someone mentions budgets, it then gives you the chance to maybe even ask them questions, and then it becomes interactive, and then both sides really begin to gain from each other. Talking about budgets specifically might get into the tools that are used to manage those budgets, or what techniques do you use to ensure that you're going to be on budget? Or when you know that you might break a budget, how do you manage that, and how do you handle it ahead of time? So Craig, any thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, actually, a couple of things.
Yeah.
Can you oversell? So, for instance, you brought up the international thing. Well, if I'm talking to somebody who is entirely local, they're a small business, they're entirely local, maybe don't care that you've done a lot of international work, or maybe they're in a business that's never seen a project that had $1 million budget, right? So saying that, yeah, I've worked, I've had $100 million budget. It's kind of like, okay, we're not in your league, or you're not in our league, or so maybe you need to be careful, again, knowing your audience, that you don't want to close down the communication because you've maybe shared too much.
Absolutely. And granted, we are talking about some 101 networking situations here. In the more advanced settings, you certainly want to be able to ask questions to perhaps draw that person out, to be able to understand a little bit more about their position, how they think, what they're into, and so that you can begin to mix and match against what their experiences are. So certainly, situationally, we don't want to accidentally shut down a situation or a conversation because we went way over the top, or we might be a little cautious. We might think our budgets have been lower, and I know that this person's with a larger company. So I think it depends. It could be situational, but we always want to be able to pull out those individual line items when we feel that it's appropriate.
Somebody else mentioned the I stuff, right? And I think it's interesting because I think that way also, and I think we're kind of trained, especially as PMs, to team. Let's organize this stuff and not really call out yourself. So I understand the comments. But something that stands out in my mind, I was at a company that's very much team oriented, and I was in an interview, and I was talking about all the stuff that I'd been involved in and the teams and blah blah blah, and the hiring manager looked at me and said, "So, have you done anything?" I said, "I've just been telling you everything I've been doing," and he said, "No, you're not. You're telling me what the team did. What did you do?" And so I think there is an element that you have to, you know what, this isn't, a toot my own horn kind of I'm the greatest thing, but I do think there is a space that says, yeah, I couldn't have done this without the team, but this is what I did in that team, right? It was a great team, but, I was, the great running back, or I was the wide receiver, I was the whatever else position, because everybody plays positions in those teams. So this is what I did to help that team be successful. Might be a way to, solve the balance between the I's and the we's.
Everybody,
right, keep going, Chip.
Yeah, everybody on this webinar today is a professional with a depth of experience with many, many interactions professionally inside companies and outside companies, and you'll be able to tell the appropriateness of the situation. I definitely do not want anyone to take away that this is supposed to be an authoritarian, specific line item by line item, specific way to do this. I think we'll all adjust depending on the conversation. But do listen to what Craig was saying. We do want to defer. We do want to share success with the team. It is important to speak in the space of we. For the folks that might be out there that are looking for other opportunities, or you're working right now, and that's great, what a blessing, and are beginning to look around outside, maybe concerned about the environment, concerned about maybe the company you're with feeling like it's a little bit shaky, beginning to look outside, it will be more and more and more important to be clear about what you specifically did, so that the listener, per Craig's comment, will be able to understand your capabilities. So great comment, great sharing, Craig and Cheryl and everybody for your questions. Craig, do we have any others before we move on?
No, we probably do need to do a time check, Chip. It's almost 7, and let's keep going.
So we got about 15 more minutes to close?
Totally, yeah.
Okay. Thanks, everybody, for your sharing. That was fabulous. Okay, this is something that, and loved working with Craig. So Craig got to be my guinea pig, and we were sharing lots of ideas here. Been doing this and been in this space for many, many, many years. A thought that kept coming up and coming up and coming up is the importance of being interesting and having something to say, to share, to talk about. These introductions, I think, are great. They're icebreakers to then take your conversations perhaps to another level, to another step. Maybe even for some of you to consider that you might be the future thought leaders in your department, in your company, in your industry, and in the profession of project management. We've got a few things that we want to run past you as perhaps a stimulus for how you might integrate some of these thoughts and ideas into your future conversations. So let's take a step forward. Want to throw out a poll, George, if you would please, about being purposeful in your interactions, to be pre-prepared in addition to your introductions.
Okay.
We remain. You guys can just choose one.
Is this the choose one, Craig?
This is the choose one. Even if you've done all of these, you gotta say which one is maybe the most important.
Okay, we're getting close to about 50% so far that have voted. Really good responses to polls in this session, so thanks to everybody. Again, we're up over 90%.
Right.
And it may be slowing down now. So we'll give it a few more seconds.
Hey, while we're closing that up, it's interesting, we had a comment come across, Chip, that kind of speaks to this. You know, the best way for me to listen, best way for me is to listen and watch the reaction of the other person. You need to learn to understand what is being asked. So it kind of goes along with this poll, right? A nice segue into, you know, being part of that a relationship, a conversation, rather than just blasting, this is who I am.
Certainly.
Okay, here come the results. And I do have to say at the start, this is the very first poll that we've ever taken in these remote sessions where 100% of the attendees have voted. So congratulations.
See?
Very
It's
good.
a networking event. That's totally appropriate.
Well, what I'm seeing here is great, and certainly the I'm sure from the last slides about saying I versus we, and doesn't that seem a bit conceited? It's all about me and what I'm doing. You guys are all going to manage these conversations and situations to decide what is appropriate and what isn't. And so I do appreciate that the majority of you are most interested in asking meaningful questions. And a smaller portion might be in the sharing knowledge or proposing ideas. So I am going to, and Craig and I, as my cohort here, I think we're going to be pushing you a little bit in these last 5 or 10 minutes as we begin to finish up today. So George, appreciate you launching that for us.
Very good.
We kept coming back to this concept of is being interesting. So yes, we can ask meaningful questions, but what are you going to say if people begin to ask you very direct or maybe even open-ended questions? How will you respond? Will you be pre-prepared? Almost like you're being interviewed. So if 83% of you want to ask questions, that's great. That means that 83% of the people you're talking to are going to be asking you questions. What do you think you might be ready to share? Certainly could be thinking about your thoughts around project management concepts and budgets and leadership and working with clients and delivery. Absolutely. Let's see if we might take this just a bit further. So as we've been talking about this entire time, is we want to be purposeful so that if you are asked a question, something about how do you drive projects? How do you drive the interactions with your clients? How do you manage scope creep? Certainly we're going to be a little bit better than this quote. So let's put out a few thoughts here. I wanted to give everybody about 60 seconds, and we should be able to meet the time slot, Craig. 60 seconds for 4 questions, and I want to give you 60 seconds right now. Jot it down. If you had to be a future keynote speaker and you are going to be on stage, maybe what would the title of that be, or what would you talk about? Let me give you 60 seconds to consider that. And if you'd like to share, throw it into the question, and Craig will be able to see it. We need our Jeopardy music, Craig.
I know. That's
Future enhancement.
that's right. Future enhancement.
Telling you, Craig, you should
Okay.
just get your iPod on and, you know, crank the speakers up, man.
I know that we have some speakers out there. I don't know if we have any keynote speakers, but I hope that this was a thought-provoking question. Write this down and answer this question. This should be something that you could or should or might. It doesn't mean to say you're going to be a future keynote speaker. It's just, what would you like to talk about? If you were put on the spot and you had an audience, what would you share? Let's go to the next question. If I suggested a book to someone, what one would it be? I think we all have favorite books. I think this is one of those things that if someone asks you questions or you were to ask someone a question, what has been one of your favorite books that's helped you professionally or in the project management space? Let me give you 60 seconds to consider this question if someone were to ask you.
And Chip, I might even turn this around, and some of these, and I hadn't thought about this before, so I don't know if it's appropriate all the time, but you know, that could even be part of a kind of ice-breaking kind of thing. You could ask them, or you could even say, hey, you know, have you read that Unfettered Mind book that just got put into the window? I don't know what that is, but you know, and what did you think about it, right? And you know, of course, if they say no, but you know, if it's a popular book, you know, there's maybe a good chance they have read it, and you know, that would all of a sudden, you know, make a connection, right, and give you guys something to talk about, something to share with each other. So anyway, just thought about that.
I think that's perfect, Craig. And even if they haven't read the book, you could certainly jump into what did you take out of that book? What was great about it? How did that impact you? I see.
Somebody answered the first one, Chip. How the keynote? How to bridge the communication gap between engineering and technical groups and business groups.
Beautiful.
And understanding the culture of company or group is critical to meeting their needs.
Very good. Thank you for sharing. Again, this is meant to be a stimulus. Think of yourself as being on the other side of the 83%. If someone were to ask you some open-ended questions, how can you be interesting? What might you share? Let's throw out another question. Let me give you 60 seconds to consider this. If I could change, or if you could change the world of project management, what would you do? What would your vision be?
And one of the reasons we kind of landed on this when we were talking was, again, being purposeful, but being ready to show up with something that you've thought about, right? Instead of just kind of saying, okay, after work, I'm driving to whatever, and I'm gonna, you know, meet some people. And I know it takes energy, and it takes energy, I guess. It's getting late, I can't think, but you know, having something that you've thought about that says, yeah, I can bring this to the table, right? I can talk, you know, the how do I change the world might be a little grandiose, but if there are some problems that you see in project management, or, you know, what do you think about the changes the PMI has made? It takes you thinking about it first so that you don't have to think about it on the spot, right? Somebody says, you know, what do you think about that change in PM? Well, or PMI, this is what I think about it because I've thought. So again, being prepared, right?
Absolutely, giving it some pre-thought, and I've been enjoying, and I am curious about, and we mentioned about the vision of project management. What I am just enamored with is Musk, and whether you're a fan of his or not. I've been following very closely SpaceX. I have a family on my wife's side tied to NASA, and have just been following it closer and closer with this curiosity of how he's been able to do these incredibly visionary things, like landing the rockets back on a drone ship. Amazing. How do you manage projects to be able to pull something like that off? Absolutely fascinating. One more question and we'll begin to wrap up. And I encourage people to think about this and do this regularly. In our space on LinkedIn, we use that tool to share and to network. It's not just about jobs. But if you were to post an article today, doesn't have to be overly complex, what would it be about? Let me give you a second to consider that question. If anybody would like to share, please do. And thanks for the folks that shared 9 lies about work. It's great. Thank you. I hope everybody can see these and can take notes. Appreciate all the sharing. And if anybody would like to pop it into the chat, please do.
I'm glad you can see these chats.
Yeah, as you're giving this some thought, I'll even share a recent post that I put out there. When we say article, it doesn't necessarily have to be like the Harvard Business Review. It can be very short. I posted this thought about what I'm coining as a term as Zoom stamina. And Zoom stamina is certainly when you are a participant to be able to have the visual stamina to remain engaged throughout a presentation, because you could be viewed. People might be looking at you and observing your facial expression, your body language. They can tell your energy, interest, or disinterest in what is happening. It's not a very complicated thing to talk about, but it's something I think that's incredibly important in this day where we're shifting so dramatically towards a virtual Zoom environment. I know we're getting close to our time to finish. I'll wrap us up. I'm watching the clock, Craig.
Okay.
Let's just put those big 3 questions back out there again. Will you be purposeful in your next networking opportunity? Will you create a purposeful introduction? And will you explore ways that you can be purposeful, more interesting, more interactive, things to share in your next interaction? Appreciate so much your time. I'll kick it back over to Craig, and I hope that maybe you picked up a little something out of today that would be helpful for you, and that your next networking opportunity that you keep in mind, let's be purposeful that next chance that you get. I thank you very much and really appreciate your attention today, as I know that this is challenging. I wish I could shake a hand.
Thank you, Chip. I appreciate it. I'm going to take control back. Thanks, everybody. Again, this actually worked out pretty well, considering the constraints and whatnot, where we had to do the chat question thing. Very much appreciate your participation that way. We're right at time, so we're not going to maybe have a lot of Q&A, although we could stick around for a couple. I do want to talk about the presentation be available. And Cheryl, do you want to say a couple of words about how do we get these? Do they get sent out, or how do we get the handouts?
Okay, great question. So yeah, if everyone who's attending right now will look on their right navigation in their panel, they'll see what looks like a folded piece of paper. Those are actually your handouts. So if you click on that icon, you can take the handouts right there, and you should be able to download them while we're in session. And if you don't want to do that now, and you would like to have them later, then you just need to email. I think the email is actually in the webinar itself, but I think it's meetings@pmiwic.org. It'll be in your invitation. So if you have any questions, And if you'd like to have it sent separately, also, there will be the recording of our presentation as soon as that renders tonight. That's available as well upon request. And what we do is send you an invitation to register to view the video. So it's on a case-by-case basis. But yeah, lots of good stuff.
Very good. And I did something. I can't see the questions. I don't know if any had come in. I know we're out of time, but.
Actually, yeah. So there was just one additional one I think we didn't get a chance to post, and that was just another article, product-centric model for digital transformation. And then just we had a thank you coming in from one of the attendees. So good job, you guys.
All right, perfect. Thanks again, Chip. Appreciate you taking your time to do this, and everybody for showing up and making this a success. Have a great summer. If you don't interact with us before then, and watch for news about the events and activities in September. All right, thank you. Bye.
Right. So Craig and Chip and a few others if on the board, if you guys want to hang out after the meeting a little bit, we can chat about the recording and what have you. So Chip, just so you know, once that recording renders, anyone has access to it. They just register, just ask for a link to the video. So if you ever wanted to use this for promotion for yourself or something like that, absolutely. They send us a request, we send them the link, and they register, and they have it. Oh, and Pam just said, Pam, I'm gonna mispronounce this, Kabasumi. I think. Pam said, thank you, very useful information. And Alicia, thank you for putting the information together. Chuck Lloyd, thank you. Lots of thank yous. People really appreciated the presentation.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, I thought it went really well. Chip, I heard immediately that you were trying to pace your speaking, which we talked about. I'm terrible at that, but I think it worked. And Cheryl and others, I think that was something that Wayne talked about last month.
Mm-hmm.
Slow it down. As we're getting used to this virtual thing, we don't have body language. We're not seeing each other. Talking more slowly really helps. So I know you were doing that, Chip, or I think you were doing that, and it actually worked. So good job.
Oh, good. Yeah, I don't. Did we talk about that? I forget.
You mentioned it, yeah.
But maybe for you, I mean, you're high energy, you're ready to go, and and that's great. I love you for that. I've been doing a heck of a lot of Zoom training over this last 3 months, as you can imagine, and I've found that it's incredibly important to slow down, articulate, try to build in a little bit of silence and some space. So I'm glad. I hope it came across okay for you guys too. Talking about networking in this kind of environment is different, right? It's not a handshake. It's not face to face.
I thought it was really well delivered. I registered, as you know, as an attendee, so I was watching it as an attendee. Plus, I was here as an organizer. So just so you know, as an attendee, it's about probably 8 to 10 seconds behind. So as you're, putting slides up and those kinds of things. So it is good that you pause, especially when we're putting out the polls, because when George puts out the polls, launches the poll, it's immediate for you. But as a participant, it took probably 8 seconds for that to pop up for me. So I just barely had enough time to click my answers before we were in the process of taking the polls down. So just kind of an FYI there.
Well, Cheryl, one thing to remember is that as a participant, you have that extra 5 to 8 seconds at the end. So when you're listening to me say we're about to close things, that won't be out on the web for 5 or 8 seconds. So it's not like you're getting confused on both ends.
True. Yeah, I think it's just, you're right. It's challenging for us when we're listening to it live and then listening to it as it's being broadcast out to others. So yeah, good point. Good point.
Yep.
All right, everybody. Hey, thank you. And it was great.
Yeah, you guys did a great job. I'm impressed. It was nice.
Did that go okay? I have to admit, on my side, it's a different. This subject's not very easy in a Zoom or webinar environment to really kind of work through it. So I'm hopeful that. I mean, glad you felt like it came across okay.
Yeah, I thought it was great. So, yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was a little
Same.
bit weird doing the cutting and pasting, and Cheryl, you were helping me out there, but that worked. I thought that worked pretty well.
It worked really well, and I apologize. You got caught up to me, and I realized, oh no, he's caught up. Okay, good. And it was too late. I'd already double post, so sorry about that. But you
You're
and
right.
Chip were talking, and I was like, oh shoot, I wonder if I should just kind of fill in here. So yeah, anyway. But yeah, no, I thought that went really, really well. And as you were posting, just so you know, I always would respond to folks and say, hey, thanks for your
Yeah, I saw
response.
that too.
Right?
So
Did you?
like,
Okay.
that's great that they recognized.
Okay, just a couple of logistics points. One is I went through, there were 2 or 3 attendees that hadn't signed off. So I did dismiss them so that we could have this chat.
Oh,
But
thank
the
you,
other thing I
George.
just noticed is that the recording is still going.
Yes, and that's okay.
And so when somebody comes back to listen to the recording later,
Right.
all of this is available.
So what I can do is, let me
Let me
see if
stop the recording, yeah,
I think I can. Where's my little button here?
on the top.
Yeah, let's see. Edit, options.
Well,
view. Oh, there it is.
So we were talking before we launched. Can we stop and still be on?
I'm trying to get rid of the share. Are you guys seeing my desktop still?
Nope.
No,
Mm-mm.
Yeah, so I think the recording doesn't start until you launch the webinar,
That's correct.
but we're still officially in the webinar, just
Right.
everybody else left. So we're
So,
still being recorded.
so just so you know, George, I'm not seeing where I've got a button that actually turns off the recording while we're still in. It says if you
Okay.
don't want to be recorded, mute yourself, otherwise leave the session, but it
I'll
doesn't.
click what I see. It's right at the very top in the sharing area.
Okay. So just open.
Recording,
Yep, I got it.
and
Yep, I got it. Stop
oh, it's
recording.
recording again. Hang on, pause it.
All right. All right.
Nope, it's
I'm
recording
good.
again.
yeah, back on.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care, everyone. Have a good summer and signing off.
Thanks.
Gosh, Rod.
Yeah, Rod, thank you.
Yeah,
Right.
gonna miss you, man.
All right. Thanks.
Okay,
All right, how do I get out?
right. So as far as like following up for these kinds of meetings and such, George, I think maybe you and I and the team need to talk more about how do we end these meetings? How do we make it, more of a graceful exit? And then
Yeah.
how do we do like a kind of a after action review kind of thing? Because these meetings are still new, we're still learning. And I feel like we want to, while we're kind of in the moment, still be able to talk about that. So
Yep, and it'd be great if we could do that, but then not have all that